I know, I love this sweater. It's my favorite sweater. All right, guys, hi, we're back. Listen, a little bit of Winn Dixie. Here we go. We're going to go to chapter 15 because we've just realized that Gloria Dump, our last chapter, it's pretty heavy. It's okay if you talk to your mom and dad about it, about people making bad choices in their past and how you can't judge them by that, like think that they're always like that, because people can change. People can do things better. That's what I love about this story. It's like all about like seeing people for who they are right now by their words, but also by their actions. So here we go, Winn Dixie. Bam! And we're going to go to chapter 15 because we just got done with that Gloria Dump, that pretty heavy chapter. It's going to get good. The Herman W. Block Memorial Library air conditioning unit didn't work very good. And there was only one fan, and from the minute me and Winn Dixie got into that library, we hogged it. He hogged it. He laid in front of it, wagged his tail, and let all of his fur blow all around. Some of his fur was pretty loose, and it kind of blew off him like a dandelion puff. I worried about him hugging that fan, and I worried about the fan blowing him bald. But Miss Franny said it was not to worry about neither thing. Winn Dixie could hog the fan, she said, if he wanted to. Sometimes when Miss Franny was telling a story, though, she would have a fit. There were small fits that didn't last that long, but what happened was that she would forget what she was saying. She would just stop and start to shake like a little leaf. And then when that happened, Winn Dixie would get up from the fan, sit by Miss Franny Block's side. He would sit up tall, protecting her with his ears, kind of standing straight up like a soldier. And when Miss Franny stopped shaking and started talking again, Winn Dixie would then lick her hand and then go back and lie down in front of the fan. Whenever Miss Franny, had one of her fits, like it kind of reminded me of Winn Dixie in a thunderstorm. There were a lot of thunderstorms that summer. I mean, I got really good at holding Winn Dixie whenever he came, and I held on to him, and I comforted him, and I whispered to him, and I rocked him, just the way he tried to comfort Miss Franny, the way he did that for her when she had fits. Only I held on to Winn Dixie for another reason. I held on tight to him so he wouldn't run away. It all made me think about Gloria Dump. I wondered, who comforted Gloria when she heard those bottles knocking together? I wanted to comfort Gloria Dump. I decided that the best way to do that would be to get her a book to read. But I would read it to her, loud enough to keep all those ghosts away. And so I asked Miss Franny, I've got a grown-up friend whose eyes are going on her, and I would like to read her a book. Do you have any suggestions? Suggestions, Miss Franny said. Well, yes, ma'am, I have suggestions. Of course I do. How about Gone with the Wind? What about it? What? It's a wonderful book about the Civil War. The Civil War? Do not tell me you've never heard of the Civil War, Miss Franny Block said, and she looked like she was going to faint. She waved her hands in front of her face. I know about the Civil War, I told her. That was the war between the South and the North, and it was over slavery. Well, slavery, yes, said Miss Franny. It was also about the states' rights and money. It was a terrible war. My great-grandfather fought in that war. He was just a boy. Your great-grandfather? Yes. Miss W. Block. Now there's a story. Winn Dixie yawned real big and lay down his side with a thump and a sigh. I swear he knew the phrase, now there's a story. And he knew it meant we were going to really hear something soon. Go ahead and tell it to me, Miss Franny. And I sat down cross-legged right next to Winn Dixie, and I pushed him and tried to get him to share the fan. But he pretended he was asleep. He wouldn't move from that fan. Yeah, I was all settled in and ready for a good story when the door banged and pinch-faced Amanda Wilkinson came in. Winn Dixie sat up and stared at her. He kind of tried to smile at her, but she didn't smile back, and so Winn Dixie laid back down. I'm ready for another book, Amanda said, slamming her book down on Miss Franny's desk. Well, said Miss Franny, maybe you wouldn't mind waiting. I'm not going to tell India Opal a story about my great-grandfather. You are, of course, more than welcome to listen. It'll just be 1 minute. Amanda sighed a real big dramatic sigh and she pretended like she wasn't interested. But she was. I could tell. Come sit over here. No, I'll stand, thank you. Suit yourself, Miss Franny shrugged. Now, where was I? Oh, yes. Litmus. Litmus W. Black. Chapter 16. Litmus W. Black was just a boy when he was firing on Fort Sumter occurred, when the firing and the shots started. Fort Sumter? It was the firing on Fort Sumter that started the war, said Amanda. Oh, okay, I shrugged. Well, Litmus was 14 years old. He was strong and big, but he was still just a boy. His daddy, Artley W. Black, had already enlisted, and Litmus told his mama that he could not stand by and let the South get beat, so he went to fight. Miss Franny looked around the library, and then she whispered, Men and boys always want to fight. They're always looking for a reason to go to war. It's the saddest thing. They have this unabiding notion that war is fun, and no history lesson will ever convince them differently. Anyway, Litmus went and enlisted. He lied about his age. Yes, ma'am, like I said, he was a big boy, and the army took him, and Litmus went off to war just like that. He left his mother and his 3 sisters, and he went off to be a hero. But soon he found out the truth. Miss Franny closed her eyes and shook her head. What truth? I asked her. Why, that war is hell. It's pure hell, Miss Franny said. Ooh, hell is a cuss word, said Amanda. I stole a look at her. Her face was all pinched up more than usual. War, said Miss Franny with her eyes still closed, should be a cuss word. She shook her head and opened her eyes, and she pointed at me, and then she pointed at Amanda. You, neither of you can imagine. No, ma'am, Amanda and me said exactly at the same time. We looked real quick at each other, then back at Miss Franny. You can't imagine, Miss Franny said. Litmus was hungry all the time. He was covered with all kinds of fleas and lice. And in the winter, he was so cold he thought he would freeze to death. In the summer, why, there was nothing worse than war in the summertime. It stinks. And the only thing that made Litmus forget that he was hungry and itchy and hot or cold was that he was getting shot at. And he got shot at quite a bit. And he was nothing more than a child. Did he get killed? Good grief, said Amanda, and she rolled her eyes. Now, Opal, I wouldn't be standing in this room telling this story if he was killed. I wouldn't exist. No, ma'am, Litmus lived, but he was a changed man. A changed man. He walked back home when the war was over. He walked from Virginia all the way back to Georgia. He didn't have a horse. Nobody had a horse except for the North, the Yankees. He walked, and when he got home, there was no home there. Where was it? I asked her. I didn't care if Amanda thought I was stupid. I wanted to know. Why, Miss Franny shouted so loud that Winn Dixie and Amanda Wilkinson and me all jumped. The Yankees burned it. Yes, ma'am, they burned that home to the ground. What about his sisters? Amanda asked, and she moved around the desk and she came a little bit closer to the floor and she looked up at Miss Franny. What happened to the sisters? Dead. Dead of typhoid fever. Oh no, Amanda said in a real soft voice. And yes, ma'am. And his mama? I whispered. Dead too. And his father? Amanda asked. What happened to the father? Well, he died on the battlefield. Litmus was an orphan? I asked. Yes, ma'am, said Miss Franny Black. Litmus was an orphan. This is a sad story, I told Miss Franny. It sure is, said Amanda. I was amazed that she was agreeing with me about something right now. I'm not done yet, Miss Franny said. Winn Dixie started to snore, and I nudged him with my foot to try to keep him quiet. I wanted to hear the rest of the story. It was important for me to hear how Litmus survived after losing everything he loved. Wow. That's another big, happy chapter, guys. Story of Miss Franny Block's great-grandfather. Went to war, very young, lost everything. Whew. We'll find out what happens to Litmus when he gets back from the war. How's he going to make up for all that sadness he's feeling? I don't know. I told you, it's a good story. I'll see you guys later. Be safe. Have a great day. Go outside. Read a book.